Okay, I'm gonna do another video. It's been suggested that I try to make my videos a little bit shorter, so I'm gonna try to do that. I'm gonna go through my vinyl haul for, I think this is August of 2017, and I'm gonna go through it via genre. So the first genre here I'm gonna do is pop, all the pop records I bought, which isn't very many for this month. Then I'll do another video for kind of rock and indie music, and then another one for metal. So that, just in case you just want to watch one of these or any of them, it doesn't matter. I don't know how many people are watching. But, all right, one of the records I bought in August, I think everybody has this one, or a lot of people do, the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. It's the Bee Gees. This is a real fun record. If you did watch any of my other videos, you know that I do like disco. ABBA is, one of my favorite bands. I really like them. Yeah, not much to say about the Saturday Night Live soundtrack, except that it's great. Inner sleeve. I got both inner sleeves on here. I don't think there's anything else special on this besides the inner sleeves. Yeah, it's a good record. The movie is bizarre to watch now. It's really, it's a violent movie. I mean, there is some crazy stuff that happens in that film that, if you just remember the dancing and the music, there's some other dark stuff in there. There's like a rape in there that happens that's pretty, it's not like nudity graphic, but it's still pretty graphic. And there's like, spoilers, but there's a suicide as well that happens in that film. It's pretty wild. It's a dark movie, and yeah, the John Travolta character is kind of like he's kind of like a scumbag in this movie. He kind of redeems himself a tiny bit in the film. He kind of learns a little bit of a lesson, but it's still a dark movie. And yeah, the women aren't treated very well in this film either. It's pretty awful. But the soundtrack is pretty freaking great. Of course, all the hits, Staying Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, all the Bee Gees stuff. Jive Talkin', Boogie Shoes from the Casey and Sunshine Band's on here. Disco Inferno, You Should Be Dancing, More Than a Woman. Yeah, some really, obviously, lots of hits on here. From my understanding, the Bee Gees, they wanted to see the movie before they lent the music, or before they wrote the music or whatever. I don't know if they had these songs in the can already. And, then the producers wanted the Bee Gees to do it, but the Bee Gees weren't sure. So I think that they had other music playing. I don't remember, I should have looked it up, but I think there's other music playing during a lot of these dance scenes that are not, the original Bee Gees. They overdubbed the Bee Gees for those scenes. But yeah, there's other songs that are in there that they were actually dancing to. It wasn't the Bee Gees, from my understanding. But yeah, this is a great record. I think a lot of people have this in their collection. I still pull it out and listen to it like I did for this video. Yeah, and that came out November 15th, 1977. I'm going to do these in order of release, and then I'm also going to do, I'll do a Spotify playlist for the whole month just to kind of mix it all together. But I'm just going to do the videos separate. All right, the next album came out in May 10th, 1982, and this is Duran Duran Rio. This is an excellent 80s pop record, of course. I don't think it was their first, no, it wasn't their first record, but it's a great record. Has Rio, Hungry Like the Wolf, Hold Back the Rain, which is a really good song. And side two, there was no hits, but they're still all good songs. New Religion, Last Chance on the Stairway, Save a Prayer, and The Chauffeur. But yeah, Hold Back the Rain, I don't know if that was a single or not, but it probably could have been. It's a really good record. Duran Duran is good. I think this is the only Duran Duran I actually have, honestly. I've almost picked up their first record a few times. I probably should. I know I'd like it. And maybe some of their other stuff too. But yeah, I think this is the only Duran Duran I have from 1982, and that is Rio. The song Rio on here, yeah, it's obviously they had a radio mix because This version is over 5.5 minutes, and it's a really good version of the song. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, some of these 80s, like, if you're so used to watching the videos and stuff on MTV, the songs are different. A lot of them are different because they were severely edited. Maybe not severely, but a little bit. Some of these songs are edited for, radio singles and stuff like that. So it may not be what you're used to if you haven't, heard the album version of some of these songs. All right, next record I got came out in October '82. And this is a kind of an EP or a mini album from Berlin, and this is Pleasure Victim. Now, if you're only used to the Berlin that did I think didn't they do the song for Top Gun or whatever? But yeah, like this record is very 80s pop. It's more, kind of like in the vein of like a Madonna or a Dio, like a pop dance record kind of. It's really, really good. There's some really cool songs on here. Sex I'm A is a really good song. Pleasure Victim is good. Yeah, and there's only 6 songs on this record. And it came out on Geffen. So yeah, they got a major label right away. And yeah, it's a really cool record. If you really like that 80s sound, big hair, look at how huge that hair is from the 80s. Yeah, and that was before, hair metal, they must have really, took that to heart. But yeah, this is a really good record. If you see this, I would pick it up, especially if you like just 80s pop music. There really wasn't any hits on here that I'm aware of, but all the songs on here are pretty good. Especially Sex I'm A. I really like that song. That's a cool song. Yeah, I got this. I think I've seen this so many times for, $5 and under. I think you can still get it for that. It's a cool record. All right, I'm gonna skip ahead and then I'm gonna go back. I normally don't collect singles, but when I saw this in the bin, I think I saw this at what's the record store? Manifest Discs, where if you watch my other videos, they had like you buy 2 used and you get 1 used for $1. This was probably my dollar record. This is the You Can Dance from Madonna single. It has Into the Groove on it, which is kind of cool because that song's not on any of her albums. It was only on the soundtrack to, I think, Vision Quest, or is that a different song? I'm not sure if that song was on an album or not. I can't remember, but it's really, really good. This is kind of a cool single to have. It's actually not that bad. It has Spotlight, Holiday, Everybody, Physical Attraction, Over and Over, Into the Groove, and Where's the Party. So it's more like, it's kind of like an EP, more like an EP than a single. So yeah, I mean, I think there's songs on here that weren't on records, like Spotlight, I'm not sure. Holiday and Everybody, I know for sure. I think Over and Over was on a record as well. But Where's the Party, I'm not sure. Physical Attraction, I think, was on an album. But yeah, this is pretty good. I would pick this up, obviously, if you're a Madonna fan. I know a lot of Madonna fans collect everything, all the singles. A lot of times it's just for the art, because those songs are already, out there, on the actual albums. But I believe this was my dollar pick at the time, Sometimes at Manifest I had a hard time finding that third record, so I probably picked this up as my dollar record. All right, now I'm going to go and we're going to talk a little bit about this album. This came out, that Madonna record came out, I think I said it, but let's make sure. November 17th, 87. That was going to be the last record I show, but this record, Michael Jackson, Thriller. Obviously, Michael Jackson is controversial now a bit, but yeah, I still have this record. It came out 1982, November 30th, 1982. And it's a good record. I definitely like this Michael Jackson record. Obviously, it was one of the best-selling records, or is one of the best-selling records of all time. Almost every song on here was a hit. Want to Be Starting Something, Baby Be Mine, The Girl Is Mine with Paul McCartney, Thriller, Beat It, Billie Jean, Human Nature, PYT. The Lady in My Life, I think maybe was the only song that wasn't like a big single, but every other song on here, charted at some point in the 1980s. But an interesting thing about this record with the MoFi stuff that's going on, this is that album that they were going to press, or they are going to press 40,000 records on, or of. I think it's the One Stop records. If it's not the One Step, it's definitely a MoFi release. And that whole controversy came out where they were using a digital step in that process, whereas the advertising, and I think that everybody's understanding of MoFi up until that point was that everything was analog, straight from the tapes to a lathe, that would cut the record. And when you cut that record and you create a lacquer from that, I guess those lacquers can only be used a certain, to create a stamper one time, maybe twice, probably once, and then they'd have to play the tape again, create another lacquer, and those stampers can only make a certain amount of records, maybe 10,000 or something like that, or maybe less. So in order to make 40,000 copies of a record, they would have to run the tape a bunch of times. So instead of doing that, and instead of doing that for the many, many, many years, at least from 2015 onward, they have been using a digital step in that process. They've been making a copy of the original master tape. So technically, they are playing that tape, making a digital copy, and then taking that digital copy back to their studios or whatever, and cutting lacquers from that, mixing, remixing it, doing whatever they need to do to make it sound as good as possible with that particular digital copy. Now, the problem with that is that the advertising for MoFi basically states, and it seems pretty clear, even if it's not, even if legally, it's kind of, mumbo jumbo in there, they're not specifically saying we go from tape to the lathe directly. It's heavily implied that that's what they do, and I think it's the understanding of every customer of MoFi who bought those records, that's what they were expecting, that's what they were hoping that they were getting, and that's why they spent the extra money, because it was the closest to the original tape as possible. Even and a lot of people talked about how maybe it was a copy of that tape to another tape, and then they used that tape to create the analog version of the album, but they weren't even doing that. And MoFi says that they've had better results with the digital step process, the DSD file that they use, and we'd have to kind of believe that in a way, because a lot of people who bought those MoFi recordings over the years, a lot of them is the best sounding, some of those records anyway, not all of them, but a lot of them, is the best version of that album that those people have ever heard, especially people who are used to those records and have had them in the past, and can tell the difference, or have very good hi-fi systems that, they can hear the subtle differences. So it would never, I don't think it ever really is, like, the question that's being asked, I think there's two questions, right? There's one question is, and this is the main question, this is what most people are pissed about, is did MoFi mislead the customer? The second question, which a lot of people are putting in comments and stuff like that, is like, oh, well, fuck you guys, digital is good, this proves it, all you audiophiles. That isn't the point, right? That's not the point that a lot of people are trying to make. The point is that when you think you're buying something that's being advertised to you a certain way, and then you find out it's not that product, it's not what you thought you bought, that's where the problem is. That's where the mistrust comes from. It's not that it was digital, because there, like other people have made points, the digital step has been used on other releases, and other people have reviewed those releases and said, yeah, this version might be better than the MoFi, which people thought was the analog version, So I don't think that there's two distinct questions, and I think that people who want to weigh in have to really address those two questions separately. The digital is better or as good as the analog. that's a separate question than did MoFi mislead their customers, you know, in a way that seems kind of sleazy now, you know, like, and then them not really taking ownership of that misleading of the customer, you know, like they're really just kind of being more defensive about it than, yeah, we know what we did was wrong. We did the advertising this way on purpose, you know, kind of deal. And I think no matter what they do, maybe they can't come out and say that because, you know, legally they'd be admitting to false advertising, and that could lead them into some legal trouble. That could be why that they can't say anything, you know, apologize about it or be honest about their advertising. And they might have worked on that advertising through a legal way in order to cover themselves, you know, from any type of questions that come up later, you know. And I believe some other videos have said, you know, they've changed the wording of that in their literature inside the records over time, kind of to even make it even more vague as to the digital process, you know, the digital step that was being introduced. But anyway, I have no MoFi records. I would not spend that much money on a single record unless it's like my favorite, you know, band and stuff like that, you know, and you know, so I'm not going to buy just anything for that premium price. It's going to have to be something that I really, really, really like. I would much rather just have an original pressing that I know, especially in the 80s back, you know, at this time, should have been an all analog process. Now, this might have been made from a copy of the tape, but still, it was a copy of the tape onto another tape, which means that all that whole analog process onto the vinyl record was, you know, maintained. Now, whether that makes this record sound better than maybe a MoFi who introduced the digital step, I don't think that matters. At least not to me, as a person who doesn't invest in the MoFi. I just know that this is probably going to sound as good as it could have sounded from what was available for the technology at that time. And it was from the original source. Now, with all the technology we have, you know, and the digital step in the middle for that MoFi does, yeah, man, maybe they can manipulate that file and manipulate the sounds and pull things in and out to make it sound better and make you hear things that you didn't hear before. And maybe the album's just going to blow you away now, but they have to sell it as that. You know what I mean? They have to say, hey, we're making this album sound better using a digital process. And that's why it's going to sound better. It's not going to sound better because we're all analog all the way through. It's because we have this digital step in the middle that allows us to, you know, allows them to, you know, make the record sound as the best it could, I guess. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. Like I said, I am not invested in MoFi in any way. I don't even have a single release. I don't even buy their inner sleeves anymore because they've gone up in price so high. They're like 30 to 40 bucks for a pack of 50, where I can get the Invest in Vinyl still inner sleeves for 20 bucks. And I was buying MoFi when they were like 20, 25 even, because they are good quality inner sleeves. But that's the only thing I've really ever bought that has the MoFi, you know, logo on it, you know, that money went to MoFi. And their inner sleeves are a problem, you know, like they just work. And they were high quality. But yeah, Invest in Vinyl does a real good job if you're looking for inner sleeves. I don't know, this one probably has a MoFi inner. Let's see. Yeah, see, that's a MoFi one. I don't know if you can see that or not, but yeah, so I definitely bought some MoFi inners early on. I didn't take much of a chance on the third-party ones until the prices started to skyrocket. And you know, it was weird because at periods of time, you know, those MoFi sleeves were hard to get. You know, like they would sell out real fast. You know, like they would make a bunch and then they would sell out pretty quickly. So you kind of had to jump on them if you saw them on Amazon or whatever. But yeah, Invest in Vinyl is probably as good, I would say. Maybe, you know, maybe not, almost as good. You know, they're not as good as the MoFi's inners, but they're good enough. All right, well, I'm gonna make another video. I'm gonna probably do hard rock or metal next, and this is all for the pop and the MoFi rant.